Hello and welcome, I'm JD and this is an updated tutorial for formations. So in this tutorial we'll cover some of the reasons why you should use formations. We'll quickly go through how to set up a formation and some of the considerations when doing so. And then we'll have a look at the three settings for formations, being relative, true, and loose, and some of the pros and cons for each. So why do you want to use formations? Formations can help you in a number of different scenarios. For example, if you have a large number of ships, then using a formation for either half or all of them, such as a frigate swarm or a shuttle swarm or a corvette swarm, can actually take down a lot of micro and free you up to make other decisions. You can also use formations to help guard a particular asset, use smaller ships to escort a larger ship, and provide support and utility whilst the larger ship does the damage. Other times you may simply want to use formations so that your ships that you've built support each other in combat and they can all focus down a single target or maybe a secondary target before moving to the next. Things like Task Force Garnet with the Plasma and the T-30s, as well as things like Task Force Ash, both use formations to good effect. You can create formations before you enter the battle within the fleet editor or on the fly during a battle itself. The way the formation system works is that the guide ship is the ship that you will ultimately control, and that will give orders to all the other ships that are attached to it, also known as escorts. So to create a formation around the guide ship, we first select the escort ship,
Standing by.
right click and go to the movement orders, and then we go to formation, or the shortcut Shift F. So when you select formation, a green line will appear and you drag that to your guide ship and you'll see it snap to. And when you left click on it, you'll open the radial wheel that you would have seen with the movement command. Like the movement command, we can now use the radial wheel to position where we want the escort ship in 3D space around our guide ship. Holding the control key, we can increase or decrease the elevation relative to the southern keep. Or if we release control and we simply have the normal mouse control, we can either increase or decrease or change the positioning of where the escort ship will be in relation to the guide ship. For the purpose of this, the ANZ Gladius will be moved into position of the guide ship, being the southern keep, 500 meters to the port side.
Lead on.
It will now move into position, and you will see that the ships are linked by the orange icon on the top left unit cards of the ship. We can now do this for all the remaining ships in the fleet. Here I used a mix of going through the menu into formations, as well as using the shortcuts in order to quickly get into formation. Now we have 3 corvettes escorting our heavy cruiser, and you can see on the top left that all of the ships now fall under the Southern Keep's direction. Things to note: if you do this in the fleet editor before the game, all 4 ships will deploy as a group and in this formation already set up on the battlefield. If you do it within the game, then this is how they will respond until you either drag a ship out of formation by just giving it a simple movement order, which will break it away, or until you recreate the formation another way. For example, moving one ship above as opposed to the left. Another point to note is that signature size will increase for ships within 250 meters of each other. Here you can see that the Corvette has an increased signature size because of the blanket jammer. However, if we move within 250 meters, we can see that its radar signature size has now increased by 15% because of the one nearby ship being the Southern Keep. Now, the Southern Keep is a large ship and will likely be detected at the full range of an enemy's radar. However, we do want to keep the Corvettes in formation and near the Southern Keep, but we don't want to make them any larger to enemy radars. So we'll move it back out to at least 300 meters for the smaller ships. And if you have larger ships, 400 to 500 is probably a good size, because when you turn your ships within formation, you need to take into account the fact that they may enter the 250 meter bubble. That will then increase the signature size. Now that we have the ships in a formation, we can have a look at the various different types of formation positioning. Relative is the formation setting that your ship will adopt upon deploying into a game and upon initial creation of a formation in that game. In the relative formation positioning, all ships will take their direction off the ANZ Southern Keep and will always attempt to keep the T shape regardless of which way it faces. I can give a demonstration of that by changing the movement heading of the ANZ Southern Keep to the starboard side. Watch as all the corvettes maintain their positioning and their distance by swinging around, either by using their main thrusters, their bow thrusters, or their angular thrusters, until such time that the ANZ Southern Keep has fully rotated 90 degrees to the starboard side. This would also happen if we change the heading to an elevation position.
You heard the orders.
If we clear the heading and allow the ships to return back to their normal position, we can also issue a roll command, and all the escort ships will again take the lead from the guide ship and roll in the direction that is indicated from the ANZ Southern Keep.
Aye, aye, Commander.
Again, they will always attempt to maintain the T-shaped position. So the ANZ Southern Keep performs the roll order as requested, and the other ships roll in order to maintain position. We can also individually give ships a roll command.
Right away, Commander.
As you can see, the J Scout has rolled to a different location, and we can have the E Scout rotate upside down.
What are our orders, Commander?
If we clear the roll command from the ANZ Southern Keep, our individual ships will still maintain their roll command.
Awaiting your orders.
Again, however, we'll attempt to maintain position around the Southern Keep relative to its heading and its roll. So what are some of the pros for using relative formation positioning? First, if you've set up your formation in order to cover the weaknesses of a larger ship, for example, J Scout, M Scout, and E Scout, if each of these have a point defense or perform a particular role,
Yes, Commander.
then they will always be able to guard that particular area of the ANZ Southern Keep. So for example, if the J Scout has a VLS 46 launcher, in which case it has anti-missile missiles as well as chaff, then what we can do is always ensure that the right-hand side or the starboard side of the Southern Keep is protected from missiles from that direction. Regardless of which way we now position at the Southern Keep, we will always have the starboard side covered from offensive action from the enemy. Likewise, if we always want our jamming ship or our electronic warfare ship behind the ANZ Southern Keep, for example, we always want our Pinard behind the Southern Keep as opposed to in any other location, we can also make sure that it is always behind regardless of which way the Southern Keep moves. So this is really good if you're doing something with a battleship, for example, and you want to cover a weakness, or you have a potentially mixed fleet, in which case you want to have your point defense or a certain type of point defense always on one side, then you can do that so that your ship will always be protected. A con of using the relative formation positioning is that things such as the OSP with casemates or other ships that have fixed frontal weapons or narrow fields of fire or cones of fire, in order to bring their weapons onto target, the whole formation needs to rotate. So here, for example, if I was to issue a movement order to the starboard side in the direction of the enemy, you can see that the whole formation now needs to rotate. This is taking time away from the casemates and the frontal arcs of these ships from actually being able to engage the enemy. And as you see, it requires the full formation in order to swing around and bring its targets onto bear. Now, in certain scenarios where you start to have a thrusters being degraded, then that's going to slow down your formation. Another issue with formation positioning is that when you give a movement order that is behind or not a nice 90 degrees either left or right to the relative position of the original guide ship, for example, by giving a full 180 move to the rear of the ANZ Tasty Pains,
Copy that. Moving.
it's going to cause all the ships both to collapse in and expand. So here you can see they start to drift within the 250 meters of each other, causing the signature size increase. The right Scary has reorientated itself, but the Echo of Desmonda was pretty close to the Tasty Pains for a long time. That may just give enough signature size increase that the enemy is able to identify is particularly bad with slow ships, which will remain within that signature size area for a much longer time, as opposed to a faster ships where it'll be the minimum amount of time. Proper formation spacing, even at 350 meters, or proper movement orders may prevent that. The next type of formation positioning is the true formation. And you can access the true formation by pressing down next to the formation positioning button, left clicking to go forward from relative to true, or you can go right click through loose over to true. The The true formation will keep the formation always facing in the same true bearings, regardless of the direction the guide is facing. This is why you will sometimes see that when you switch your heading from relative to true, your ships reorientate themselves. Here you can see that the right Scary and the Echo of Desmond are actually going to swap places. And that's because when we created this formation, the right Scary was actually on the left-hand side facing away from the center of the map, and the Echo of Desmonda was actually also doing the same thing, but on the right-hand side. You can see if we clear the headings now, and they return to their original true positions within the formation, that they don't change which sides they're on because they're in their true position when that formation was created. You'll also see that one of the benefits of the true formation is the fact that each ship individually rotates in place, but in formation with the rest of the ships. So, if I give a roll order, for example,
Aye, aye.
they'll all be able to roll as per the relative formation. Same deal with the heading.
Aye, aye.
But this time, instead of all of the ships moving around the guide ship, each of the ships will maintain the same formation, being the line at the bottom with one ship at the top, regardless of which way we say the heading and the roll
Aye,
is.
aye, Commander. Aye, aye, Commander.
If I clear all heading and roll orders and give some movement orders, you will see that unlike the relative formation where the ships would rotate around the center ship, always remain in that formation. Is that all ships will always maintain
Aye, aye,
that
full
inverted T positioning regardless of which way they're going, whether it be to the right, forward, back, or to the left. It's not always absolutely smooth. However, they always do attempt to maintain that formation. So what are some of the pros of the true formation? One of the pros is that when you give the heading and the movement orders, each of these ships will rotate individually. And that enables, or the way I found it is that it actually reduces a little bit of the time to be able to bring your formation onto target, as each of the ships can rotate almost independently in order to get towards and focus on that target without everyone having to fully rotate. One thing that you do need to watch out for when using the true formation is that you can block your
Gotcha,
line of
5
sight
by 5.
through other ships, because we will always maintain this position. If we engage an enemy to our right-hand side, as we will simulate using this heading order, because we've put all our ships effectively on one plane, the rear ship and the middle ship is actually being blocked from firing due to the Echo of Desmonda. So if you are going to use true formations for these types of fleets, it's always best to offset your ships just ever so slightly. So, for example, the starter fleets and task force Ash will have this problem, so that regardless of which way you now face your heading, all of your arcs of fire will be okay, and they'll be able to engage. So here you can see, as we've created basically this slant, we're able to fire on the right-hand side. We all can fire forward, and if we change the heading to face to the left, again, our arcs of fire for our casemates are going to be fine. It looks a little weird, and it may not be as aesthetically pleasing. However, you're not blocking your lines of fire, and that's absolutely important, as your guns won't fire if a friendly is in the way. And if they do happen to drift into the way after you've fired, then that's when you create some friendly fire. One of the issues with both the relative and the true formation is that they are limited by the speed of the guide ship. For example, a sprinter should absolutely outclass or outpace this battleship that it would normally be by itself. However, if we go forward 2 kilometers, so you can see at 19.21, 19.22, if I was to break the ANZ Ghoul off, it will go and accelerate much faster because it has that ability to get up to that 30 to, I think with flank, 46 meters per second. So one of the limitations of both true and relative is that you're always going to go as fast as the slowest ship. So the loose formation means that the guide ship will not slow down to let lagging escorts catch up. So if we have a look and do a bit of a base test, let me just throw the ships back around the Leap of Henrietta in formation.
What can we do for you, Commander?
With the guide ship being the slower ship, the other two ships will maintain the 19 meters per second, which is basically the maximum speed for the Leap of Henrietta. So if I go all the way forward,
Understood.
you can see we've topped out at 19.21, 19.22, 19.21. So whilst they maintain
Awaiting
their
orders, Commander.
formation around the Leap of Henrietta within that true style of
Understood.
formation,
We're en route.
what they'll actually do is they'll always match the guide ship's speed. 17, 19,
Awaiting orders.
17, but likely due to the fact that some of the thrusters aren't as strong as the others. And what I'm going to do now is have the ANZ Ghoul be the guide ship, meaning that it will have the fastest speed, and it will leave behind the escorts being the Leap of Henrietta and Spree Diving. You can see that the Ghoul going at 32 is outstripping the Spree Diving, and even though the Leap of Henrietta is not fully facing forward, the 19 meters per second based on the movement speed, the Ghoul will get there to the position first, followed by Spree Diving and the Leap of Henrietta. So to start with, you can see a con there being if your fastest ship is in the loose formation, what that's going to do is means it'll get into the battle or complete the movement order before the other ships within your fleet, which may actually leave behind that combat capability. For example, if the Leap of Henrietta and Spree Diving are supporting the Ghoul got there a long time before these did, noting that I'm running on 10 times speed at the moment, which means that the Ghoul potentially could have reached its location, ran straight into enemy ships, and died. However, it does mean if your ships were operating around the Leap of Henrietta, for example, they all would have got there at the same time. However, if one of the ships did get damaged, for example, if a flak round did take out the Spree Diving or limp the Spree Diving, then we're not all going to be restricted to the lower speed of the injured ship. We'd continue with the Ghoul being in formation around the Leap of Henrietta. Another con of the loose formation positioning is that if you have ships in a weird formation, for example, they're all on the same sort of plane, and you have some that are faster than others, they will collide into each other, and it'll cause a bit of confusion amongst your ships. For example, if I take the Ghoul, give it an order to basically move through the other two ships, then what's going to occur is, what may occur, is that the ships here will start to get into this weird position where it may actually clip, and there you go, it clips into the Leap of Henrietta, throwing the battleship off, throwing the Ghoul off, basically slowing this down. If all your ships are going at the same speed, or, you know, have those little, if all your ships are having some of these issues, and they all start to get really close together, you may actually find they get entangled. It's hard to untangle them. If that occurs, basically need to rip them out of the formation, get them to move apart, and then recreate that formation. It's just a little bit annoying. So, which is why if you always offset your ships so that they not only have free lines of movement, but also lines of fire, as well as fields of fire, then if I give that same type of order, you can see now that instead of getting tangled up with the Leap of Henrietta or the Spree Diving, Ghoul can simply pass through unobstructed, and the other ships will now catch up in their own course. Why do you want to use the loose formation? Well, the loose formation is really good for swarms, that particularly as ships start to get damaged, as long as the leader is always the fastest or most healthy ship, you'll be able to take advantage of formation firing, maintain the formation orders, and you don't have to then worry about pulling all the other ships out of formation, orders to give them separate orders and not hamper the overall fleet. So here, as long as the Ghoul remains fully healthy, then I can give the orders to these other ships. If they were all corvettes, then they would all be moving roughly the same amount. Even if some of their engines got degraded, you would be able to maintain formation orders and formation movement commands without actually having to compromise, having to pull the Spree Diving off. And now I've got not only the ANZ Ghoul to give orders to, I now have to give orders to Spree Diving as well, increasing my micro when I'm having multiple ships. I'm trying to focus on all of them against multiple threats. Loose formation can also be really good at the beginning of a match, where you deploy in and you want to be able to capture a point early, you set your ships to a loose formation. They'll be able to go ship. The fastest ship should be able to go capture that, and then you can come back and set it to relative or true, bringing them back into that nice tight formation without having to then compromise how you've set everything up. In order to maintain the formation and basically quickly switch between who is the leader, if one of your ships is destroyed, or if the ghoul takes damage and I want Spree dying to be the leader because it is now the fastest and I want to maintain my loose formation, what I can do is I right click on the ship that I want to become the leader. So it can't be the guide ship that is currently selected or is currently the guide. So I want Spree dying to be the leader. I'm going to click on it. Then I'm going to issue or my movement order and assume lead. The upwards arrow plus F is Control F for the shortcut. And when I select that, the Spree dying will now be the guide ship. If I select the ANZ Ghoul and Control F, I can go straight to the Ghoul being the formation, being the guide ship, or the Leap of Henrietta. And you can, I'm just using the keyboard, doing the shortcuts. You can see how quickly this moves the leader between the formation. Like normal, you would give the guide ship the orders. So with the Ghoul ship being the guide ship, if I give Spree dying lead, what that will do is cancel the order. So you then have to quickly reissue the order with the new guide ship, as we always take orders off the guide ship and not off an existing command from the former guide. So to see that again, if I give a movement order and then I select the Ghoul to become the leader, Control F, we will terminate the orders, but I can quickly give that order back again. Again, I am at the 10 times speed. So you'll probably be okay with most of your ships if you are able to quickly do that within battle. So with that, that ends the updated formation tutorial. In this tutorial, we went through some of the reasons why you may want to use formations, how to create formations, both in the fleet editor and in-game. We went through the various types of formations and some of the pros and cons for relative, true, and loose, as well as how to assume command of a new and how to pass command from one guide ship to another, as well as how to leave a formation and recreate a formation on the fly. If you have any questions, please put them down in the questions below. If you have any examples of why you may want to use one formation over another, please do that as well. Pass that knowledge on to the community, and thanks for watching and take care.